I'm Craig Kenneth, a relationship coach and a psychotherapist. Every relationship is different and every breakup is different. Work with me and you'll get professional help on your situation. And if you're in no contact, focused on personal growth, my workbook series, The Knowledge, will help you make changes like you've never made before. Available now at AskCraig.net. Hi there, I'm Coach Craig Kenneth, and in this video, I'm going to be talking to you about sometimes it was really bad. Well, unfortunately, sometimes people get into situations that lead to getting aggressive, violent, hostile with each other. And a lot of times, those people grew up in homes where they saw violent situations, aggressive parents, abuse, and we get caught up in that toxic dynamic that we saw our entire childhood. Unfortunately, when we don't work through our issues, these things just kind of keep replaying within us. Trauma can be so overwhelming that our unconscious wants to figure it out. That's why you have to do the work. That's why we say do the work, get into therapy, do the workbooks and the creative healing course. Work through that stuff. The creative healing course especially is more designed to work through traumatic events because there's art therapy activities and there's audio affirmations and there's cartoons that can kind of show the dynamics that you see in these frustrating situations where people get really upset. So unfortunately though, sometimes people get so upset and intense that they say things that they regret and they do things that they regret. And in this video, I've got a fairly extreme situation that there's a lot going on, but I do understand that many of you are in situations like this, and so it may be helpful to you. So I've got an email coaching today from a guy in his early 30s who was dating a woman in her late 20s. He says, to start, my ex has borderline personality disorder. So we do have some videos on borderline personality disorder, if you're not sure what it is. It's often caused by extreme neglect or abuse in early childhood, and it leads to people really struggling with their emotions, massive amounts of anxiety, and really an inability to soothe themselves. They're constantly in this state of panic and pain and fear, and it overwhelms them. He says she can flip-flop from very anxious and needy to very loving within a few minutes. And, you know, if you really think about that, imagine being with somebody who's like that all the time. Extremely loving, and then all of a sudden anxious and needy and overwhelming you. It would get exhausting. She goes to therapy for it once a month for the past 3 or 4 years. Well, I'm certainly glad that she's getting therapy, but when you have a personality disorder like that, it would be a lot more beneficial to go to therapy more consistently than one time a month. He says, I believe I'm fearful avoidant. I show affection often, but when stresses of life hit, I can be very distant and don't know how to communicate. Yeah, that's exactly what fearful avoidants tend to do. They kind of shut down and they're kind of on like low power mode. They don't want to talk about things. They don't want to deal with things. But then that causes a lot of anxiety in their partner. I realized some of this after starting to watch your Be a Master in Relationships playlist. We met in the summer of 2022 on a dating app, and things ended around the same time in 2024. 99% of the time, I let her reach out to me. And if you're dating a borderline, she's going to reach out often, right? In a situation like that. I work 2 jobs as a manager, and she just lost her job a week ago, but has had numerous jobs throughout the relationship. but I've offered to help her pay her bills because I care deeply. She moved into my house after about 8 months due to not feeling welcome anymore at her brother's house. Well, she may not have been welcome anymore. Uh, People with borderline personality disorder often overwhelm people when they're around them too much. And so maybe the brother was like, this is enough. I can't take care of you. You need to find your own place. Maybe he didn't even say it. Maybe he just started to make her feel unwelcome. He said, I thought I understood borderline personality disorder, but I was dead wrong. Well, I mean, it's a very complicated issue to deal with. And fortunately, that was one of the things that Margaret specialized in. So we talked a lot about it over the years, but it's very intense. And to date somebody with that kind of intensity can be a lot. I dated someone briefly who had borderline personality disorder, and she was cutting herself. She was drinking a lot. I had to have her hospitalized one night from drinking so much while we were at the comedy club. It was very, very scary. I'm not going to get into the whole story, but it was very scary because I had no idea what she was doing. I was running the comedy show, and I really had no idea how much she was drinking or if there was more going on that she didn't tell me. But it was very scary watching somebody go through this, to drink so much that I had to call an ambulance to come help because I was afraid for her health and safety. And just being through that was a huge traumatic ordeal for me, and I'm sure on some level for her, but I don't know her whole history, but she probably had gone through some similar things in her life. He goes on to say that though she seems to be not as high on the scale and see some things in gray, but still flippy floppy. That's how he describes her. Our relationship had very many beautiful and special moments with lots of fun and laughs, but when it was bad, sometimes it was real bad. With arguments of conflicting opinions, and if we were out with friends, it would start real nice, but on the way home, there was always a problem. I'll be like, let's take separate cabs home. You take an Uber. I'm just kidding, but it's going to get pretty intense here. It got to me, and not being able to get her to calm down after her "you don't care about me" insults, I would stonewall. Okay, so that is one of the signs that somebody does have borderline personality disorder, is they don't feel cared about. And it's like never good enough. No matter how much you try, how much you give, how much you're there for them, they don't feel cared about. And that's really from the trauma in their early childhood. That really is probably more about their caregivers' neglect than you neglecting them. I didn't know what to say other than that I did care very much. Alcohol has been just about a daily thing in my life for the past 7 years. Well, that sounds like an issue to me. Daily for 7 years? I never craved it, but it put me thinking in the current moment in life instead of the stresses of financial struggles and unprocessed traumas in my early life. Well, maybe you didn't crave it because you would just drink it every day and you knew you were going to drink it at a certain time, or you had some kind of routine. But it sounds like it was kind of numbing you. When we would go out with friends or any get-togethers, I was never able to drive, never was ready to leave when she wanted, and it would piss her off. I could see why. People are tired, they want to get home. People get grumpy when they're tired. In New Year's of 2023, she physically pushed me out of anger, and I told her that I don't deal with that kind of crap, let's say, but we worked it out. I was being a little too playful with her one day, annoying her, and she threw half a loaf of bread at my eye, which hurts more than it sounds. Okay? Yeah, I mean, a half a loaf of bread, that doesn't sound like it'd be very painful unless it's like one of those Italian breads and you can, really whack them like a broom. But like a little soft loaf of bread doesn't seem very painful. I mean, imagine if she got mad and hit you with a rotisserie chicken. I'm kidding, but of course this is serious, and we don't want anybody to get hurt in the situation, but sometimes you have to laugh at this stuff. I mean, he got attacked by a half a loaf of bread. That's a new one for me. Another time she pushed me again and I pushed her back and she fell. She was okay, but all anyone saw at the event was her on the floor. Yeah, it's not going to look good. Going to look like you were aggressive. You're probably much bigger. So obviously it's going to look like you're the one that caused it, right? That you lost your temper. Finally, I completely lost all emotional self-control. 3 o'clock in the morning, extremely drunk, her driving us home. I threw a fit in the car. Elbows were flying, legs kicking. I even cracked her windshield from the inside. Not to mention the rotisserie chicken. Just kidding, I made that part up. I accidentally elbowed her arm and intentionally nudged her shoulder, screaming, I hated her. I've never done that before, and I refuse to be in that place again. So that's pretty scary. 3 o'clock in the morning, she's driving, he's drunk, screaming, yelling, getting aggressive, physically getting aggressive, screaming, I hate you. Now he sounds like a Sith Lord. But obviously, this is not healthy, and you don't want to be in a situation like this. I did a lot of self-reflecting after that, but I didn't actually get the motivation until a month ago. Wow. Motivation to what? To grow? To really change until a month ago? That was 5 months. She moved out the next day. That happened 6 months ago. We saw each other often after that and still communicated daily until a month ago. She takes hours, if not days, to reply, and I don't pry. I've quit drinking for a month, lost 40 pounds, and am going to therapy now. That's fantastic. That's what we love to see. Obviously, this is a really intense, toxic situation, and I'm glad that you are dealing with it like an adult. Obviously, you can't go back in time and change anything that you said or did, but now you're doing what you need to do to work through this stuff and make sure that nothing like this happens again. So be proud of yourself. I bought your workbooks and started them today. That's great. You're going to love them. Do them 30 minutes a day and always review your answers from the day before. She still wants to see me, but she's scared. Well, I mean, can you blame her? I mean, after going through this, of course you're going to be scared. Now, it's not all his fault. Obviously, she seemed pretty aggressive and intense and overwhelming, and this is really on both of them. Okay, so hopefully she's getting some help and working through her issues too. I know she was in therapy once a month, but you really need to go more consistently than that if you're having a major issue like it seems like she's having. What do I do or say when she reaches out just to talk? I've been successful with reconnecting and just having fun recently, but I think she's seeing someone else and hasn't told me yet. Well, she could be, but if she's reaching out, I would be inviting her to get together. Now, if she says she's scared, I would certainly say, I totally understand. I'd love to get together with you, even if we just went for a walk and just try to enjoy each other's company a little bit and just let her feel safe around you again. You talk a little bit about the issues, not too much. You don't want to overwhelm, but, maybe just apologize if you feel like you need to, or if she brings up what happened, then you can apologize. But, you don't want to overdo it because it sounds like she's still scared. I'm doing my best to be her best option, and I understand more about how she feels and our attachment styles. I want to show her the love she deserves as she's shown me. Okay, well, listen, it wasn't all on you, okay? She clearly made a lot of mistakes in this relationship. She has, difficulties with soothing herself, losing emotional self-control. She's getting angry and aggressive with you. And so this isn't all on her. I know you feel like a big part of it is on you, but it's really something that you both created together. And you need to make sure that you both can navigate something healthy together. At this point, you don't know if you can. I know things were good a lot of the time, but when it was bad, as you describe it, it got really bad to the point where you guys were getting into major physical arguments while she's driving and you're drinking. So stuff like that can lead to some really dangerous things for both of you. And so you really need to give this some more time too. You just started the workbooks as of writing this email. You said you started them today. And it doesn't sound like you had done much work in the previous 5 months. I know you said you broke up 5 or 6 months ago, but it sounded like the last 5 months you hadn't worked on yourself, only the last month. So you really want to give this more time and give this some space and really decide if you're good for each other. Can you be good for each other? Is she going to work on herself and her own issues? And can you create something where it's going to be relatively peaceful or de-escalate situations before they get this volatile like they have before? This is obviously a complicated situation, and I would really recommend taking this extra slow to make sure it can be something that you can work out, because it's going to get overwhelming once you quote unquote get back together. There's going to be a lot of emotions and hurt and anger and stuff that is going to come up from the past that people are probably still hurt and angry over, both you and her. And so you want to take it slow and process that stuff a little bit at a time in a way that neither of you are overwhelmed. Okay? Now, I know there are going to be people that are judging out there, but quite honestly, there are a lot of people that are in similar situations. They just aren't brave enough to share their story. So brave for you to allow me to do this in a video. I'm glad to see that you're working hard on yourself and you're committing to personal growth. And that is what adults do. I've said this before. There are no perfect people that are watching this channel, including myself and Victoria. Maybe Margaret. She was pretty perfect. I'm kidding. But nobody's perfect. And so when somebody is trying to better themselves, we want to encourage it and not beat them up and, really harp on them about their past mistakes that they can't do anything about. We want to encourage what they can do in the present and for their future. And that's what this guy is doing. So that's great to see. Okay, so hopefully this one's been helpful to you. Of course, if you want to get my help personally, you can do that on my website, askcraig.net. I do email coaching and I do Skype. My creative healing course and my workbooks are only available on my website. But that's it for this video. I'm Coach Craig Kenneth, and I will talk with you soon.